I, 42M, have been married to Sarah, 39F, for the past 18 years, and honestly, until last month, I thought we had a perfect marriage. We met during our sophomore year in college. She was studying business, and I was in engineering. We dated for 2 years before getting engaged in our senior year. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. We got married right after graduation and started building our life together. 2 years into our marriage, we had our son Jake, and everything seemed perfect. I had a good job at a tech company, Sarah was climbing the corporate ladder at her firm, and Jake was growing up to be a brilliant kid. We lived in a nice suburb, went on family vacations twice a year, and never had any major problems. Sure, we had our occasional arguments like any couple, but nothing serious. Sarah was always the perfect wife and mother, or so I thought. Jake turned 16 last month. He's always been interested in history, and recently he's gotten really into genealogy. He kept talking about these DNA testing kits and how cool it would be to trace his ancestry. For his birthday, I thought it would be perfect to get him one of those premium DNA testing kits that also show you genetic relatives. Sarah seemed a bit hesitant about it but didn't say anything outright. Now I understand why. 2 weeks ago, the results came back. Jake was excited to explore his heritage, but what he found instead changed our lives forever. Through the DNA matching feature, he discovered he had a half-sister, Amy, 16F, living just 2 hours away from us. At first, I thought it must be some kind of mistake. But then Jake showed me Amy's profile, and my heart stopped. She was born just 3 months before Jake. I remember that period clearly now. Sarah and I had gotten engaged, but about 7 months before the wedding, she suddenly got cold feet. She said she needed space to make sure she was making the right decision. We broke up for about 2 months. When she came back, she was full of apologies and said she had realized I was the one she wanted to spend her life with. We got married as planned, and 2 months later, she told me she was pregnant with Jake. When I confronted Sarah about Amy, she tried to deny it at first. But after hours of arguing and crying, she finally confessed. During our break, she had gone back to her ex-boyfriend Tom. They had a brief relationship, and she got pregnant. But she claimed she had realized she loved me more and came back. She never told me about the pregnancy or about Amy. What makes it even worse is finding out that this wasn't just some secret child she had given up for adoption. Sarah had been actively involved in Amy's life for years. Since Amy was 5 years old, Sarah had been secretly meeting her every few months. She would make up excuses about business trips or visiting old college friends. She attended Amy's school events, sent her birthday and Christmas gifts, and even had a separate bank account to send money for Amy's expenses. She had created a whole separate life that she managed to hide from Jake and me for 16 years. She had separate social media accounts to keep in touch with Amy. She even had photos of all of Amy's major life events stored in a secret email account. All this time, while I thought she was the perfect wife and mother, she was living a double life. Jake hasn't taken the news well at all. He's angry, confused, and hurt. He keeps asking to meet Amy, saying she's his sister and he has a right to know her. But every time he brings it up, I feel sick to my stomach. I know it might sound cruel, but I can't handle the thought of him having any connection to the product of my wife's betrayal. It feels like letting them meet would be like accepting Sarah's lies somehow. Sarah thinks I'm being unreasonable and unfair. She keeps saying that Jake has a right to know his sibling and that I'm punishing the kids for her mistakes. She's been crying nonstop, telling me how sorry she is and how she wanted to tell me many times but could never find the courage. But how can I believe anything she says anymore? She's been lying to my face every single day for 16 years. I've moved out of our bedroom and have been sleeping in the guest room. I can barely look at Sarah anymore. Every time I see her, all I can think about is how many times she must have lied to me over the years. How many business trips were actually visits to see Amy? How many girls' nights out were secret meetings with Tom? Jake hasn't spoken to either of us in days. He stays locked up in his room and only comes out for meals. Sarah's family found out about everything last week, and they're divided. Her parents think I'm being too harsh and should give her another chance for Jake's sake. They keep saying that what's done is done, and breaking up our family now won't change the past. But Sarah's sister actually sided with me. She said she couldn't believe Sarah could maintain such a huge lie for so many years and that if she could lie about something this big, who knows what else she might be lying about. My own family is furious with Sarah. My sister, who was always close to Sarah, feels particularly betrayed. She's been texting me nonstop, telling me I need to leave Sarah and that I deserve better than someone who could lie to me for so long. My parents are devastated too. They adored Sarah and treated her like their own daughter. I've been thinking about divorce, but I'm worried about how it would affect Jake. He's already dealing with so much, finding out he has a sister he never knew about, realizing his mother has been lying his entire life. Would divorcing Sarah just add to his trauma? But then again, how can I stay married to someone I can't trust anymore? Every time I think about those 16 years of lies, I feel physically sick. All those memories of our supposedly perfect marriage are now tainted. Was our whole relationship built on lies? Were there other secrets I didn't know about? I keep replaying every moment of our marriage in my head, wondering what else might have been fake. Am I wrong to refuse Jake's request to meet Amy? Should I just swallow my pride and let them meet? Am I being an asshole for potentially denying my son a relationship with his half-sister? I honestly don't know what to do anymore. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Reading through your responses made me realize I was letting my anger at Sarah affect my judgment about Jake meeting Amy. Many of you pointed out that I was punishing two innocent teenagers for their mother's mistakes, and you were right. After a long conversation with my sister, who helped me see things more clearly, I decided to let Jake and Amy connect through social media first, thinking it would be an easier way for them to get to know each other. But what happened after that decision made everything so much worse. Jake was excited when I told him he could reach out to Amy. He found her on Instagram and sent her a message explaining who he was. Amy responded almost immediately. Turns out she had been hoping to connect with him for years. They started chatting, and at first, everything seemed to be going well. They discovered they had a lot in common, both played soccer, loved the same music, and even had similar tastes in books and movies. For a brief moment, I thought maybe this could work out somehow. But then, 3 days into their conversations, Jake came to me looking absolutely devastated. He showed me screenshots of older conversations between Sarah and Amy that Amy had shared with him. What I read made my blood boil. For years, Sarah had been painting herself as a victim to Amy, making up horrible lies about me to justify why she had to keep Amy a secret. She had told Amy that I was controlling and possessive, that I monitored her phone and email, and that I had anger issues. She claimed that when she tried to tell me about Amy early in our marriage, I had threatened to take Jake away and make sure she never saw him again if she ever mentioned Amy's existence to anyone. She told Amy that she stayed in our unhappy marriage only for Jake's sake, making herself out to be some kind of martyr. Jake was furious. All these years, his half-sister had believed he had a monster for a father. He confronted Sarah that same evening, and I've never seen him so angry. He demanded to know how she could spread such horrible lies about me, especially to someone who had never even met me. Sarah tried to defend herself at first, saying she had only said those things to protect Amy's feelings, to give her a reason why they couldn't be a proper family. But as Jake kept pushing, more truth came out. During his confrontation with Sarah, she finally broke down and revealed something that made everything even worse. Her relationship with Tom, Amy's father, had never really ended. They had been having an on and off affair throughout our entire marriage, meeting up whenever she went to visit Amy. All those business trips, girls' nights out, and weekend conferences, many of them had been excuses to meet Tom. Jake completely lost it after this revelation. He started yelling about how she hadn't just betrayed me, she had betrayed our entire family. He brought up every Christmas, every family vacation, every birthday dinner, asking if she had been thinking about her other family during those moments too. Sarah tried to hug him, saying she loved him and me, that we were her real family, and that Tom was just a mistake she couldn't seem to shake off, but Jake pushed her away. That night, Jake packed a bag and called my sister, asking if he could stay with her for a while. He said he couldn't stand to be in the same house as Sarah anymore, couldn't stand to look at her knowing she had been living this double life his entire existence. I didn't try to stop him, honestly, I feel the same way. I spent the next few days meeting with divorce lawyers. I've already started gathering evidence of Sarah's affair and the financial records of the secret account she used for Amy and Tom. One lawyer suggested I might have a case for fraud given how she had been secretly diverting our family funds for all these years. I'm also looking for a new place to live because Jake and I both agree we can't stay in this house anymore. Every room holds memories that now feel poisoned by Sarah's deception. Sarah has been alternating between hysterical crying and desperate pleading. She keeps saying she'll cut all ties with Tom, that she'll do whatever it takes to save our marriage. She even offered to go to counseling and give me access to all her accounts and devices. But how can I ever trust her again? This wasn't just a one-time mistake that she regretted and tried to make right. She actively chose to continue her relationship with Tom for 16 years while pretending to be a devoted wife and mother. The worst part is seeing how this has affected Jake. He's always been a happy, outgoing kid, but now he's withdrawn and angry. He hasn't come home from my sister's house yet, saying he'll only return if Sarah moves out. His grades are slipping, and he stopped going to soccer practice. He's also struggling with his feelings about Amy. He wants to keep getting to know his sister, but he's angry that she knew about him all along and believed all those lies about me. My sister suggested I get Jake into therapy to help him process everything, and I think she's right. Number 16-year-olds should have to deal with this kind of betrayal from their own mother. I've found a therapist who specializes in family trauma, and Jake has agreed to give it a try. As for me, I've started sleeping in hotels because I can't stand being in the same house as Sarah anymore. Every time I see her, I think about all the lies she told, all the times she must have been with Tom right before coming home to me. I keep thinking about how she sat across from me at dinner all these years, looking me in the eye while living a completely different life that I knew nothing about. I never thought I'd be starting over at 42, but here I am. At least I know I'm making the right decision this time. Update 2. Just when I thought this situation couldn't get any worse, I discovered something that made everything before seem almost trivial. While gathering financial documents for the divorce, I found some irregularities in our joint accounts that didn't make sense. Sarah had always handled most of our finances because she worked in finance and I trusted her completely. Another mistake on my part, it seems. After hours of going through bank statements and transaction histories, I discovered that Sarah hadn't just been sending money to Tom for Amy's expenses. She had been systematically moving large sums of money from our joint savings account into her secret account for years. At first, I thought it might be a few $1,000s here and there, but as I dug deeper, I realized the scale of her deception. Sarah had been transferring money in small amounts, probably thinking I wouldn't notice. But over the years, these small transfers added up to nearly $200,000. This was money we had been saving for Jake's college fund, our retirement, and our future. I felt physically sick when I saw the total amount. My lawyer helped me hire a forensic accountant to trace where all this money had gone. That's when we made the most shocking discovery yet. Sarah and Tom had bought a small vacation house together 3 years ago in a lakeside community about 3 hours from our home. They had been using it for their meetups, all funded with our family's money. Nearly $100,000 of our savings had gone into this secret property. When I confronted Sarah about this, her response made me realize I had never really known her at all. Instead of showing remorse, she tried to justify her actions. She claimed she was just trying to be fair, that it wasn't right that Jake would inherit everything while Amy got nothing. She said she was thinking about both her children's futures. The way she could say this while looking me in the eye, as if stealing from her son's college fund was somehow morally justified, made me realize how delusional she had become. I immediately contacted my lawyer and had all our joint accounts frozen. We're now looking into pressing charges for financial fraud. The lawyer says we have a strong case given the systematic nature of her theft and the clear paper trail. But the revelations didn't stop there. Through my lawyer, I managed to track down Tom's wife, Rachel. It turns out she had no idea about Sarah or Amy or the vacation house. She thought Tom went there for fishing trips with his college buddies. When I told her everything, she broke down and shared some information that made everything even clearer. Rachel had found some encrypted emails on Tom's laptop a few days ago. She shared them with me, and what we discovered was devastating. Tom and Sarah had been planning to leave both of us once the kids turned 18. They had this whole future mapped out. They would sell the vacation house, use our stolen money to move to another state, and start a new life together. They had even been researching properties and jobs in different cities. All this time, while Sarah was playing the perfect wife and mother, while she was sleeping next to me every night, while she was celebrating anniversaries and birthdays with us, she was actively planning to abandon our family. She and Tom had been meticulously planning their escape, using our money to fund their future together. Jake was devastated when he found out about the money. That college fund represented all his dreams. He had been planning to apply to several top engineering schools, and now those plans might have to change. He's even more angry now, if that's possible. He told me he never wants to see Sarah again. Rachel and I have been sharing information and working together with our lawyers. We're both filing for divorce and pressing charges for fraud. She's as angry as I am, maybe even more so because Tom had been using her inheritance money to fund his life with Sarah. Sarah has been calling and texting nonstop since I froze the accounts. She keeps saying I'm being cruel, that I'm not thinking about Amy, that I'm trying to destroy her life. She even tried to claim that she was planning to pay all the money back eventually. I've blocked her number and told her to communicate only through our lawyers from now on. I never thought my life would turn out like this. 20 years together, and it turns out I never really knew my wife at all. The level of calculation and deception involved in her actions is almost impossible for me to comprehend. How do you share a bed with someone for 16 years while systematically stealing from them and planning to leave them? At least now I know the full truth, as painful as it is. The divorce proceedings are moving forward, and I'm focusing on helping Jake get through this. That's all I can do right now. Update 3: The divorce was finalized last week. The past 6 months have been a roller coaster, but things are finally settling into a new normal. I wanted to give everyone a final update on how everything turned out. The custody battle was surprisingly brief. Sarah tried to fight for joint custody of Jake, but given that he's 16 and firmly stated his preference to live with me full-time, the judge took his wishes into account. She was granted supervised visitation rights, but Jake has made it clear he doesn't want to see her right now. The therapist says we should respect his decision and let him process his feelings at his own pace. The financial aspect was more complicated. The forensic accountants found even more money that Sarah had diverted over the years. The total came close to $300,000. The judge was particularly harsh about her theft from Jake's college fund. In the end, she was ordered to pay back everything she had stolen, plus interest. The vacation house was sold, and all proceeds went toward paying back what she had taken from our family. Tom's wife Rachel and I ended up winning our fraud cases. Sarah and Tom are both facing legal consequences for their actions. They're looking at possible jail time, though Sarah's lawyer is trying to work out a plea deal. Turns out there were other financial irregularities at Sarah's company that came to light during the investigation. She lost her job when everything came out. Jake and Amy have maintained their relationship, which I've learned to accept and even support. They meet every other weekend, usually at my sister's house. It's been good for Jake to have someone who understands exactly what he's going through. They're both dealing with the same sense of betrayal and confusion about their mother's actions. Amy's actually a really sweet kid who feels terrible about all the lies she was told about me. Rachel and I have become unlikely friends through all this. We meet regularly with our lawyers, and sometimes we grab coffee afterward to talk. It helps to have someone who understands exactly what I'm going through. She's been incredibly supportive, especially in helping me understand and accept Jake's relationship with Amy. Jake and I moved into a new house last month. It's smaller than our old home, but it's ours, and there are no bad memories here. Jake's grades have improved, and he's back to playing soccer. The therapy has really helped him process everything. We're looking at colleges together, and thanks to my parents' help and some scholarships he's applying for, his dream schools are still within reach. Sarah moved in with Tom after Rachel kicked him out, but things apparently aren't going well for them. The fantasy of their affair isn't holding up well against the reality of daily life and legal troubles. My sister heard through mutual friends that they fight constantly, especially about money now that they've both lost their jobs and are facing legal fees. Sarah still tries to reach out occasionally. Last week, she left a tearful voicemail about how she regrets everything and wishes she could turn back time. She said she never meant to hurt us, that she got caught up in maintaining two separate lives and lost sight of what was important. But it's too little, too late. Jake and I have blocked her on everything. I've started dating again, very casually. Nothing serious yet, but it feels good to know that life goes on. Jake has been surprisingly supportive, telling me I deserve to be happy after everything that happened. Looking back at my original post, I can't believe how much has changed in 6 months. Our lives look completely different now, but maybe that's not such a bad thing. We've learned who we can really trust, and we're stronger for it. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, but they can be survived. This will be my last update. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice throughout this journey. Jake and I are going to be okay.